Hey guys, Project Zodiac here. I'm back with another video. I'm very sorry it's taken me so long to make a new video on this channel. I know I did the unboxing videos in November, but I mean a more like video essay type video. I've been wanting to do that for a while. I have a list of videos to make. I wrote a few scripts, but this video included that you're watching now is one of those videos I've been meaning to do for a while. But I've just been so busy. Like for example, I haven't even been able to write my third book since August. Um, so it's just there's just been a lot going on. A lot of personal things, a lot of like work related stuff, and a lot of projects as well. Um, so there's just so much stuff that I'm trying to focus on. So it's been a little bit hard to actually do these videos, like a video essay. But I've been wanting to do this one in specific for a very long time now. So much so that I was like, all right, today I have a day off. Let me just work on a whole bunch of projects. I've done a bunch of projects already today. I woke up at like 7:30, started working on things around 8, and it's now like 11:40, almost midday. So yeah, there's just been a lot for me to do today, but I wanted to sit down and record this video and another video, which is another video that I've been meaning to do for a while. As you guys can see from the title of this video, it's basically what the MCU Spider-Man or Tom Holland's Spider-Man is lacking. And I thought this was the perfect time to make this video because of No Way Home coming out in basically like a week and a half. The day I'm recording this is December 4th. I did make two other unboxing videos, not album related, but entertainment related stuff. I'll probably upload them either right before I upload this one or right after I upload the second one. I'll figure it out. But with all of that said, let's just get into this video because this is one I've been wanting to do for a while. And because I have so much stuff I'm working on, this one is not going to be heavily edited at all, basically. So it's just me talking with you guys. I'm sorry for no images or showing my collection of Spider-Man stuff. Um, Literally, I have so much stuff to do, so I just wanted to make this video because it's one I've been, like I said, been wanting to do for such a long time. Um, Also, I did not really make a script for this, but I talk about this all the time with my friends, so it's something that's pretty natural for me to talk about. So, with all that said, let's get started. So, if you guys just want to hear me in the background, go ahead. Like I said, there's not going to be any images to go on top of what I'm talking about. It's literally just me sitting here talking with you guys. Another disclaimer, if you guys hear a fan noise, please ignore that. I have my laptop open because I'm transferring, yeah, transferring some stuff and converting some stuff to a different video format so I can start editing that other project as well or continue editing that video project with the new files. But yeah, so please ignore the fan noise. And again, I'm sorry for the audio. I'm using my phone. It's like maybe like 2 feet in front of me. Um, so the audio is not going to be the best. I don't have a microphone. Whenever I do those videos where it's just images and videos and stuff like that, for the most part, I have my phone like video audio recording me, so I keep it close to me. But yeah, so sorry for the audio issue. I'll try to bump it up for as like a quick editing thing. Anyway, with all that said, sorry for the long intro. Let's get into the video, or actually the video essay itself. So, first, I love Spider Man. He's one of my all time favorite superheroes next to Wolverine. I've always also loved Superman, and Batman's pretty cool. Uh, so yeah, but and Wolverine has always been like ones that I just love so much. And I grew up with the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies and the Andrew Garfield movies, and now with the Tom Holland movies. So I grew up with all of these Spider-Man movies. And for me, my favorite, I'm just gonna say it right away, is definitely Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Andrew Garfield did a really good job, and Tom Holland is okay. And that's what this video is about. What I think is the issues with Tom Holland's Spider-Man. First, though, I do want to say I don't think Tom Holland is a bad actor or that he doesn't look like Peter Parker. He does. He looks like Peter. He is a really really great actor. It's this video is not about criticizing him. It's about criticizing how Disney and the MCU is handling Spider-Man. Because see, Spider-Man is one superhero that so many people can relate to the issues he goes through. If it's romance issues, if it's friends issues, if it's work issues, and like, you know, keeping his secret from everybody, all of that. It's something that everybody can relate to in some way. And I just feel like Marvel doesn't really make us feel very relatable to Tom Holland's Spider Man. So that's gonna be the first thing we're gonna talk about. We see in Civil War that he's in a very rundown apartment, or not rundown, but very small apartment. His room is really tiny. We see him scavenging stuff, and he builds his stuff out of what he finds in the trash. All of that. That's cool. That's something that Peter does. We see that. But at the same time, though, even though we see that, it's never really touched upon um, past Civil War. Because then when we get Homecoming, there's just he's already in a much much better apartment. Tony Stark is helping him out, and then when we get to Far From Home, he's in a different apartment as well, and things are much better and all of that, you know. And it's good, you know. People make progress. People improve things in their lives. Things in their lives get improved, but and that happens in the comics as well. But in the comics and even in the other Spider-Man movies, we see that things do improve for Peter, but every now and then something comes and like he has to handle it, and it's like a very personal thing. With Tom Holland's Spider-Man, they don't do that. They don't show us the struggles that Peter goes through as just a human. You know, like we see the whole thing with the Vulture and uh, you know, Spider-Man going and having his identity revealed to the Vulture and all of that. That is a little bit of a struggle, but at the same time, it's not as big because the Vulture decides to keep his secret, and the Vulture just wants to do his thing, and Peter just keeps getting in the way of it. Um, so it's not really affecting Peter's personal life. You know, it's not like he has to go and like get medicine for Aunt May while he's fighting these villains, and if he doesn't hurry up, he's Aunt May is really hurt, or if or Aunt May could be in the hospital, or one of his friends could be in the hospital, and he made a promise that he would be there, but then he's in the middle of something, and then everyone gets really disappointed in him. Like Tom Holland's Spider-Man doesn't have things like that. Before everyone starts commenting about his issues in Far From Home, we're not talking about Far From Home. We're at this moment talking about Homecoming, because I do think Far From Home did a much, 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 much better job at explaining and showing the struggles Peter goes through. For me, Far From Home is one of the best Spider-Man movies, whereas Homecoming is one of the worst. Actually, I think Homecoming is my least favorite Spider-Man movie. Um, but yeah, Far From Home just improved so much. But anyway, what we're talking about is that the movies don't really show that, and if they do, it's very very small. So, you know, like in Homecoming, all of these things about the Vulture, his date, his friends, they're just kind of meaningless, because in a way, everything that he does is just around the Vulture in a way. At least that's how I see it. You guys might see it differently. So I don't know. I just feel like the MCU movies doesn't give us a moment to relate to Peter. For the most part, every now and then they'll give like a little thing, but for the most part they don't. They really really don't. So what the Marvel movies need to do with Spider-Man is have more of those personal issues. which I'm hoping that No Way Home has. And Far From Home included some of those things too, but I'm just talking in general because for them, it seems like what Marvel is doing with Spider-Man is to make him, and I'm just trying to figure out the right words to say this, to make him already have the things that he should have so that they can just focus on him fighting the bad guy. And not how that makes huge consequences on his life. And I mean like huge consequences, not like crap, he knows my secret identity, what am I going to do? I mean that is a consequence, but like where's the action, the reaction towards that discovery? Like what's going to happen? We don't see that, at least not really. That is until No Way Home, sorry, Far From Home, where Mysterio does reveal Spider-Man's identity. But it's not just his identity that I'm talking about. It's literally like helping his friends, helping his aunt, all of that. So the MCU really needs to add Peter in situations where he can't deal with, juggling his two lives, his superhero life and his uh, regular life, his high school life. Being very, very, very late for class, getting detentions, can't go to detention, or having a date, can't show up for the date. Again, they did that in Far From Home, but you guys understand what I'm saying. So that's basically what they need to do. They just need to add moments where Tom Holland Spider Man is going through the things that we can all relate to while tying that into the overall plot of the movie, which is again what I really think Far From Home did so well because I don't want to go too much into that because I have a lot to say, and again I just have so much stuff to do today, and I want to make the second video after this as well. But in Far From Home, other than Mysterio finding out Peter's identity, there's the date with MJ that Peter butchers because he has to go be the spider monkey, which I thought was funny. Um, there was let me see what else. Him having to hide, like, when he was getting the spider monkey suit, where Flash was just like, I think it was Flash. It's been a while since I saw that one. But like, yeah, I believe it was Flash. He goes in and just sees Peter with this older girl, and he's like, "What the hell?" And then Peter has to kind of like, explain it or fix this situation. Again, I could be a little bit wrong in how that scene went, but it's the scene where he gets the spider monkey suit. Um, so things like that, Far From Home did so good, and I'm really really glad they did that because I feel like Homecoming was missing a lot of that. But I just want them to do that more, and I really feel like No Way Home will probably do that. Like add more of those things because now people know who Spider-Man is, his relationships, his friendships, his family, everything is going to be very, very complex for him now. So I'm very excited for that. Except that I do have some worries about No Way Home, which I'll talk about at the very end of the video. Um, so that was one thing I feel like the MCU Spider-Man is lacking. It's those moments of him trying to balance both lives. The next thing I wanted to talk about that I feel like they're lacking is Spider-Man, or sorry, Peter being Peter. One thing that I don't really like is how people often say like, "Oh, Tom Holland's the best representation of Spider-Man. He's in high school. He, makes a lot of jokes. He's very acrobatic. That's great. Cool. He's the best Spider-Man." But I don't agree with that at all. Um, I personally think Tobey Maguire, like I said earlier, is the best Spider-Man, and Peter Parker in his like college and so young adult and adult life. I personally think Andrew Garfield is the best high school Peter Parker towards like young adult life. And I feel like Tom Holland's Spider Man is a good Ultimate Universe Spider Man, which I've read a bit of the Ultimate comics as well. And I've been reading some of the original comics for X Men and Spider Man. I'm up to, I believe, issue 190 of the original Amazing Spider Man series. and like 220 of the original X-Men. I haven't read in a while because I have so much stuff to read as well. Um, I'm always doing a bunch of like things like reading a lot, working on projects, playing video games, writing a lot, and working a lot. So yeah, I tend to be pretty busy. But so yeah, that's why I'm feeling like Tom Holland Spider Man isn't the best representation of Spider Man we have. I feel like he is a very good interpretation of maybe Ultimate Spider Man, but reading the comics, yes, Spider Man makes jokes, but it's not to the extent Tom Holland does. Maybe in later issues, it's way more jokes, but up to issue 109, he still makes a lot of jokes, but not to the extent Tom Holland Spider Man does. Um, Not only that, but he's also just super hyperactive. I don't know why Marvel and Disney decided to write Spider Man to be super, and Peter as well, to be super, 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 super hyperactive. It's like he's 8 or 10, and that's not how Peter Parker or Spider Man is. Again, Tobey Maguire's, if you guys want to see a really, really good interpretation of him, of Peter, Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is like that. Um, and in the comics, Peter is always also thinking about like, if I didn't have my spider powers, I would beat you up for the way you're treating me. Like he doesn't like being bullied. He doesn't like people being treating each other bad. Like he's aware of his powers, and he's aware of that he needs to try to be polite. So he just thinks, if even before he got his powers, it was like that too. And he's like, I really want to beat you up, but I don't think it's the right thing to do. Um, and then, for example, when he gets his powers, he's like, I really want to beat you up, but I would need to really withdraw my attack so that I don't kill you. Um, so Peter in the comics is very like he's gentle and nice, but he's also like stubborn and he can be kind of rude. So that's why I feel like Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man was because he was like that in those movies, and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man is the more nicer, gentle Spider-Man that Peter tends to be in the comics. Tom Holland's Spider-Man is he is very he is kind, which is correct, but he doesn't really have that edginess to him. And also, he's just super, super, super hyperactive, even as Peter. So much so that it's distracting, and it's really just like, why? That's not how Spider Man or Peter is. So I feel like what the MCU Peter Parker is lacking in that aspect is that they need to tone down his hyperness, and understand that like there's so much hard things in life sometimes too, and that's another thing as well. We don't like I was explaining earlier. We don't really see Peter go through so much personal hard things. We don't even hear about Uncle Ben that much, other than I think like 2 lines, 2 or 3 lines, and that's it, um, which is fine. They wanted to do something different. That's fine. But like, he didn't even get the whole "with great power comes great responsibility" speech. I'm hoping that in No Way Home, um, sorry, I'm trying not to sneeze right now. I'm hoping that in No Way Home, Aunt May tells him this, which they might do. But what I'm really hoping for is that if Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield do come back, which again, everybody knows this, most likely it will be happening. I want them to give Tom Holland that that mantra. I want like the way I have in my mind is like it would be so so good if Tobey Maguire says like something happens and then Tom Holland feels like it's all his fault. He doesn't know what to do. I feel like if Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man goes in and he says like, when I was around your age, my uncle Ben said something to me that I remember to this day, and that's with great power comes great, and then have Andrew Garfield cut him off and just say like, comes great responsibility. Yeah, My Uncle Ben told me something like that. You know, something like in that way. I really feel like having those two Spider-Man tell Tom Holland Spider-Man that would be so beautiful. But maybe Aunt May will say it. And it's not 100% that the other two Spider-Man will be there, but we all most likely assume he will be. Um, so, you know, we need to see more about Uncle Ben or hear more about Uncle Ben and all of that. And like there's just almost no real consequences as well for Peter's actions in the MCU. Like um I feel like the MCU Spider-Man is all just about jokes and making things super lighthearted. Like when Aunt May finds out that Peter's Spider-Man, like that was shocking. It's like, oh crap. But you know, like we were eagerly expecting like that to have some action, like, and this is literally what I was saying earlier, like, and it's just an example to further prove that, I guess. Sorry, my phone ran out of memory, so I had to transfer the first half of the video, and I didn't realize until like 20 minutes later. So to finish off the video, I have two more points to make, and then the conclusion itself. So, but first to go off what I was trying to say right before the camera stopped recording was, yeah, so we were expecting to see a big conclusion to, like, or not conclusion, but a reaction to Aunt May, like the consequences of Aunt May finding out Peter is Spider-Man. But what we get in No Way Home, or sorry, I keep messing the two up, but Far From Home is literally Aunt May just being super fine with the idea. And it's like, how do you go from being freaked out to being totally cool with this? Like, where is that whole journey? So we don't see any of that. And it's really rather shocking. Um, for example, in the Amazing Spider-Man, there are moments where like Aunt May is always telling Peter like, "Where do you go? What do you do? Why are you beaten up?" Like we needed to see moments like that in Marvel's MCU Spider-Man where Aunt May is like, "No, you are not going to be Spider-Man. You're putting this away. No, you're not going to be doing this." Blah blah blah. Or Peter coming home late and Aunt May's waiting for him, and then just being really upset at him. Like, show us the process of her and Peter struggling with him having to be Spider-Man, and up to her accepting that and just being like, hey, you're amazing as Spider-Man, good job. You know, like, we need to see things like that. But again, the MCU movies just feels like it's focused on jokes. It feels like it's focused on the lightheartedness of Spider-Man rather than showing us the grounded side of Spider-Man as well. And I feel like that's really upsetting because that's, and again, people say that this is the best representation of Spider-Man. Yes, they're probably talking about Peter and Spider-Man, which I already explained is not the case. But when you look at Spider-Man as a whole, like, that's not how it is. Spider-Man is very grounded. That's why people really relate to him, and that leads me into another point, um, where, which is one of the other 2 points that I need to talk about. In the MCU Spider-Man movies, we don't really see him trying to juggle being between Spider-Man and Peter. Um, he like maybe a few times, such as like the date with MJ that he butchered in Far From Home, or you know, learning that letting the Vulture find out that he's Spider-Man, um, things like that. Sorry, I've been talking for a while, so my throat's kind of dry. Um, but yeah, so they need to have moments where it shows us Peter trying to juggle being between Spider-Man and not. I think that Far From Home did a good job with that, way more than Homecoming did. But to give a better example, is in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, there's a scene where in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, there's a scene where Harry wants Peter to get in contact with Spider-Man because he wants Spider-Man's blood to try and cure whatever's going on with him. And Peter's like, oh crap, what am I gonna do? You know, because like he's Spider-Man. He can't go and ask Spider-Man, hey, can you go talk with my friend about giving him your blood? Um, he can't do that because he is Spider-Man. So he has to literally show up there and be like, what am I gonna do? This is my friend. But I can't give him my blood because it could make him worse. Um, so he shows up as Spider-Man, and in a very heavy-hearted moment, he tells him like, "I'm sorry, Harry, I can't give you my blood." Like, that is a moment where he has to juggle being Spider-Man and not, and a lot of his actions, Spider-Man's actions as a whole, really creates the situations that he's in and the moments that he's in, and also the villains that comes with him, which the MCU Spider-Man's kind of does, but also not really. Um, so again, with the exception of Far From Home, like I'm not sure if I mentioned it earlier or after the video cut off, but Far From Home is probably one of my favorite Spider-Man movies. I'd say it's like my second favorite Spider-Man movie, um, because it was just so well done. Still has a lot of these issues though, but we'll get to that towards the end, of why I think it was so much better, because it goes into my other point that I wanted to talk about. But yeah, so and then in the Amazing Spider-Man 1, going back to what we were talking about, a moment that really shows Peter trying to balance out between being Spider-Man and Peter Parker is when Uncle Ben asks him to pick up Aunt May, and he's like, "Yeah, I'll go pick her up." Um, but you know, he has to go and see Dr. Kirk Connors, and then he's there in the lab with him, trying to figure out what is going on with him, and try to figure out more about his dad, and try to see a father figure and be like a son figure to this father figure as well. They're having like a parent-child bonding moment, but at the same time he's trying to handle being Spider-Man because he's also trying to figure out what's going on with him and how to maybe reverse it. Um, so there's all of that too. There's a bunch of factors going on, but he ends up forgetting to go pick up Aunt May. And then he comes home very late, and then Uncle Ben is like, where have you been? What were you doing? Like, your aunt had to walk home, take the bus or the train, all of that. Like, you know, like it shows the consequences of him being Spider-Man and trying to balance out both lives. Where he's like, yeah, I'll go pick her up, and then he just doesn't because he forgot because he's doing a Spider-Man thing. Um, an even better example of him trying to be Spider-Man and balance things out will probably be in Spider-Man 2, where Peter promises Mary Jane that he'll go to her show, but then he's on his way, but then stuff happens because he's Spider-Man, and he ends up getting there late, and then the guy at the doors will not let him in. And later on in the movie, you know, was that Spider-Man 2 or Spider-Man 3? Something like that does happen in Spider-Man 2. Yeah. And then another thing like that also happened in Spider-Man 3. I don't know. I just watched these like a week ago. So, but yeah, I've just had so much on my mind. But yeah, so that happens in either 2 or 3 or a little bit in both. Actually, no, the one I'm talking about is in Spider-Man 2. Sorry, I just remembered there's a scene where Peter calls Mary Jane. He runs out of time on the phone, and like he talks to himself like, "Hey, I want to tell you the truth, I'm Spider-Man." But yeah, so that's in Spider-Man 2. Yeah, so in that scene, the guy doesn't let him in because he's late and the doors are closed. And later on, MJ kind of gets pissed at him, and she's like, you can't even make it to your best friend's show at 8 o'clock. And Peter's like, I kind of want to tell you, but I can't tell you why I couldn't go, kind of thing. You know, like, it's a perfect example of him trying to balance being Spider-Man and Peter. And we don't really see things like that in the MCU Spider-Man. Um, we might see some things like that in No Way Home because now everybody knows he's Spider-Man, so everyone's gonna be like, "Hey, you killed my, sorry, you locked up my uncle. Let me try to beat you up." Or, "Hey, you, um, like tied me up to a web. I'm gonna go and try to hunt down your aunt, or uh, I'm gonna try to hunt down your best friend or your girlfriend." So there's moments like that where I'm really, really hoping that No Way Home is gonna touch on. Now, the last point that I had to do, and it's gonna lead in towards the conclusion as well, is that MCU Spider Man literally just is given everything, like his suits, his help, everything's just given to him, and we don't really see him progress through those things. And he always has a mentor or a father figure, and that's fine, but like those mentors and father figures literally are involved in him resolving the situation for the most part, in some way or another, not necessarily directly involved, like, hey, I'm fighting the villain by your side kind of thing, not necessarily like that, but so yeah, he's just mostly given these things and he has all of these supports, but and that's fine, but we never really see him handle these things on his own for the most part. Like in Homecoming, he had Iron Man. In Civil War, he had Iron Man. In Infinity War, he had Iron Man. In Endgame, he also had Iron Man, ish, kind of, yeah. Um, but and then in Far From Home, he had his, Stark stuff, like because he's still friends with Happy, all of that. So he has Happy's help. He has the Stark tech. He has Iron Man's things that Iron Man gave him. And then now in No Way Home, he has Doctor Strange, who also gives him a bunch of stuff. Well, kind of. It's most likely just the magic spell for his web so that he shoots the villains and they get transported to the jail cell. But um, you guys understand what I'm saying, though. He's mostly given things, and we never see him really struggle on his own and have to try to figure out the situation on his own. That is until Far From Home, where, like I said, and this is what I was saying, like they did this thing really good in Far From Home. Because in Far From Home, we do see Peter literally own up to his mistakes. Because he's like, all right, I created this villain. It's my responsibility. I have to take care of this. He still has Happy help him out a little bit. And he does use Tony's equipment to make his new suit, which I love that suit. It's one of my favorite Spider-Man suits. All of the other MCU Spider-Man suits, though, I don't really like, but that black and red suit is so good. Like, it's really, really good. But my favorite suit is still Tobey Maguire's suit. But yeah, that suit is good, and at least we see him use his creativity and his intellect to make something, and he designs it himself, which again we don't see. In Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, we don't see him make his suit either, but we see him like do sketches. We see him like come up with the idea for it, and but we still see him using his intellect to solve the situation that he's in very, very often. In MCU Spider-Man, not really, because again he tends to have help until Far From Home, where they literally showed us like him owning up to his mistake and him trying to figure out how to solve that on his own, which I thought was so good. Like, that was great. So I'm very, very happy for that. Like I said before, I think, again, not sure when I said this earlier, if it was before or if it was in the stuff that was not recorded. But Far From Home is like my second favorite Spider-Man movie. It still has the issues of the MCU Spider-Man stuff that I'm ranting about, but they fixed a lot of things and they did that movie really, really good. But yeah, so like it's just, he's just given those things and he just needs to, he has all the support. So that's another thing that I want them to fix in No Way Home. I want them to literally have a moment where it's going to be Peter literally freaking out because he caused this whole situation and fix it. Another little thing, I'm not gonna go too much into this because again, I'm not sure in what part I've said this, if it was already what you guys just saw or if it was what's in deleted. They, the MCU movies just focus way too much on jokes, and it's really kind of like, really, why? And it really feels forced. But the MCU jokes in general has felt forced for most of the time since like halfway through Phase Two. Um, so, like a big example is the Doc Ock scene telling them his name, and they're like, "Wait, your name is Doc Ock?" And he's like, "Yeah," and they just burst out laughing. Like you really see the contrast between the original series and the MCU stuff. Again, that scene could be edited because Marvel has edited trailers before, so it might not even be Doctor Octopus that they're talking to, but either way, it still proves that point that I'm talking about. And also just the scene where Peter is, where he butchers Doctor Strange's spell. Literally, that scene, he's like, "Oh, what about Aunt May? What about Ned? What about MJ? And all the things we've been through." But instead of being in a very grounded moment, where he's like starts to realize, "Oh crap, this is gonna happen. They're gonna forget everything," and then start like, "No, wait, is there a way to change this, or is there a way to change this?" No, instead they made him super hyper and comedic, and it that I don't know, that kind of annoyed me for that scene in the trailer. Again, movie's not out yet. This is still the 4th of December. Um, so I'm just worried that the jokes are gonna be forced so much in this movie. Especially with the other Spider-Mans. But if they're there. But as I was saying, I really want them to put Peter in a situation where he's like, "Oh crap, I did this. I have to figure this out." And again, I'm not too sure in what section I had said this, but I'm gonna say it again anyway. If the other Spider-Man are gonna be there, which again we're assuming they are, I really, really want either the two Spider-Man or Aunt May to tell Peter, with great power comes great responsibility. I hope if the other Spider-Man are there that they say it instead of Aunt May. It would be nice if Aunt May says it, but it would be so emotional and so nice if the other two Spider-Man says it. And I can still picture it where Tobey Maguire starts saying like, "Hey, yeah, you caused this issue, but my uncle Ben, when I was your age, he told me something that I still remember to this day, and that's with great power comes." And then Andrew Garfield Spider-Man cuts him and says like, "Comes great responsibility." Yeah, my uncle said something like that. Um, so, and then like, like that would just be so beautiful. I do think now saying all these words that I did say this before, so I'm sorry for repeating it again. But yeah, leading into the conclusion, that's my biggest complaints with MCU Spider-Man. Again, Tom Holland is good as an actor. Oh wait, one last thing. I don't remember again which part I said this, but what is the point in always making Peter a high schooler? Most of his stories and all of the big important stories happen when he's in college or after college. And in the comics, he was only in high school for the first 40 issues, or 42 issues. And I guess like the biggest thing really is Uncle Ben dying in the Amazing Fantasy 15. So I don't know why Marvel and just anybody, whenever they are making Spider-Man, they always have to make him be in high school. Why couldn't they just already had him be Spider-Man while in high school, but have the MCU's Spider-Man stuff be set as like a college or adult life kind of thing? I think that would have been way better than just putting him in high school, and having him stay in high school. Again, I'm not sure which part I had said that, but anyway, leading into the conclusion, those are my complaints and the things I feel like the MCU Spider-Man are lacking and what they're overdoing with. In terms of No Way Home, I'm very excited for it, but I'm also really worried for it because there's like people criticize Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man 2 for having so much stuff. I don't think it did, but you know, because it's the MCU Spider-Man, people are going to be praising the crap out of this movie. Even though there's way more stuff than Spider-Man 3 and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Like in this movie, we have 5 villains plus Venom, which for some reason they're most likely gonna keep him as a post-credit scene, which doesn't make sense. Why make Venom a post-credit scene in Carnage, in Let There Be Carnage, but then instead of showing us him throughout the movie or just somewhere in the movie and then again in the post-credit scene, they're only going to show him in the post-credit scene. So it's literally a post-credit scene for a post-credit scene, which I don't understand. It just doesn't make sense. And people are going to go into this movie expecting to see Venom, and guess what? He's only a post-credit scene. Um, yeah, and also, like, so you have all those villains, you have the plot of the story, you have to resolve the issue from the previous movie, you have the conflict with Doctor Strange, you have all the other Spider-Man as well, and then you have, hopefully, if the other Spider-Man are there, which most likely they will be, then you have like them working with each other, giving us an update in how their lives has been after their last movies, them talking with each other about each other's abilities, them teaching Tom Holland Spider-Man stuff, and then also them helping each other with each other's villains, and then also having the villains explain how they know Peter. I mean, Doctor Octopus will most likely explain that anyway, so that exposition will be taken care of. But still, like, there's so much stuff in this movie that I'm sure that they're gonna balance everything else good. I'm just worried that we're not gonna get justice for the other two Spider-Man in telling us how they have been since their last movies. But anyway, I'm super excited for this movie. So I'm gonna go and record the second video now. Um, so that video shouldn't be as long as this one. But anyway, rate, comment, subscribe. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good day.